Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be showing y'all how I do my makeup for very hot summer sticky weather when I really need it to last on my oily skin. Today is like one of the hottest days in the history of life around here, so that's why I decided to do this video today. So this is the finished look that you are seeing. I'm going to take y'all back and show y'all how I did it. A lot of the stuff that I did today is pretty much the same as my regular routine, but there are a couple of things here and there that I've changed or added just to make sure that my makeup is really gonna last when I go out today. So before we get into that, if you are a returning visitor to my channel, welcome back. Thank you so much for your continued support, and you know I have to keep on saying thank y'all so much for helping me reach 1,000 subscribers. I'm really grateful for that. And for those of you who are new here, don't forget to subscribe while you're here today. I just recently hit 1,000 subscribers, but I'm definitely still trying to grow my channel, so I would really appreciate it if you decide to join. If you do, make sure you let me know in the comments that you subscribe so I can be sure to say thank you. Okay, you guys, let's jump right into it. I'm starting off with a primer today. For those of you who are not familiar with my channel, sometimes I wear primer, sometimes I don't. I kind of go back and forth with it, but I am going to wear one today. So I'm going to be starting out with the Fenty Beauty. This is the Pro Filt'r Soft Matte Primer. This is a product that I actually kind of changed my mind about, because the first time that I used it, I didn't really think it did too much of anything in terms of like priming the face. Like, to me it felt more like a moisturizer as opposed to a primer, but I tried using it a couple times after that just as a moisturizer, and I felt like it did have kind of like a tacky feel. So maybe I just wasn't like fully paying attention the first time that I used it, but I do think it's like too much of a tacky feel to use just as a moisturizer, but it's not like super tacky. Like, it does feel like it's a good primer. So I'm gonna start out with that today, and as you can see, I just put that in my T-zone because that's the area where I get the most oily. So I'm gonna follow that up with my Maybelline Fit Me Loose Finishing Powder. This one is in the shade Light, so I'm gonna be putting this on underneath my liquid foundation. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard by now, but putting powder underneath your foundation is a really good trick for helping to curb oil throughout the day, especially if you have oily skin. I just want to show you guys the color of it just in case you're interested. It's kind of like a nice beigey color. So I'm going to pick this up on a dry sponge, and I'm basically going to put it right on top of the primer. Sometimes, like I said earlier, I don't wear primer all the time. Sometimes I'll just go right in with the powder because I feel like the powder on its own is a really good form of a primer also. But I'm just doing this for today because it's like really hot and sticky out. So I already know that I'm gonna need like as much help as I can with helping to curb the oils today. Okay, I know I look kind of ghostly right now, but we're gonna fix that. So even though I have oily skin, I've been really liking hydrating foundations on my skin lately. And you can wear hydrating foundations even if you have oily skin. You just have to apply it and prep it the right way. So I'm gonna be using the Fenty Beauty foundation. This is the Pro Filt'r Hydrating Foundation. I'm gonna be mixing shades 340 and 380. I'm gonna apply this just like normal. So I always start my foundations on my cheeks. I'm just going to do like one pump of each on the cheek, and I'm going to be blending this one out with a damp sponge. And because I have a lot of scarring and like old acne marks on my cheek, I always start my foundations right here just because this is where I want the most coverage. And then the last place that I blend out my foundation is on my forehead. So I'm basically taking kind of like residual product and putting it on the forehead. My foundation does crease sometimes on my forehead, so just to try and prevent that, I try to put minimal product up here. So I'm only putting like a little bit of foundation up here. And I feel like my foundation, my skin up here does have texture, but I really don't have a lot of like discoloration or hyperpigmentation up here. So I feel like I really don't need a whole lot of coverage from a foundation up there anyway. But the main reason I don't put as much foundation up here is just because, like I said, it does tend to crease up there on me. And then I'm also going to put some of the residual product around my eyes. I just don't put a whole lot of foundation around the eyes because I'm going to go in this area with concealer anyway. Okay, so here's my foundation. I just very slightly turned down the exposure on my camera, so let me know if this lighting looks a little bit better. I feel like everything that I just did, the lighting was just a little too bright. So let me know if this works a little bit better. I'm like trying to get my whole setup and background together, so I keep having to like change the settings with each video that I do. So I apologize about that, but let me know if this lighting is just a little bit better for y'all. Okay, so this is my foundation, and next we're gonna go in with my concealer. I'm gonna be using the Too Faced Born This Way, the multi-use sculpting concealer, and I am in the shade Mocha. So I like to blend out my concealer in 2 layers, so I put about that much on first, and then lately I've been blending out the first layer with my damp sponge, and this really is just to like save a little bit of time compared to how I used to blend out the concealer. So that's 1 layer blended out. Now I'm going to go in with a little bit more. And I'm also putting some on the chin, the forehead, and on the corners of my mouth. So I'm gonna let the foundation on the under eye area and the mouth area, I'm gonna let that sit while I do my brows off camera, and then I will be right back. And then when I'm blending out the second layer of concealer under the eye, I like to do this part with a brush because the brush will give me even more coverage, and then it'll help me keep the foundation or the concealer right where I want it. So I used to do like 1 layer of concealer, blend that out with a brush, second layer, blend that out with a brush, but I've been doing the first layer with the sponge really just to save a little time because it's faster that way. Alright, so now I'm going to set my face, and for my under eye area, I'm going to go in with my Pretty Vulgar setting powder. I've been going back and forth between this one and this one. This is the Ben Nye Luxury Powder. I've been using this a lot lately because it's a pink tone powder, which I love, but I don't think it sets the under eye as nicely as this one. So for the under eye area, I'm going to go in with this. I'm thinking about using a different powder for the rest of my face. We'll see. But for right now, I'm going to set the under eye. So I'm just going to pick up some of that powder on my damp sponge. For a while, like maybe a year or so ago, I used to just not set my under eye at all because I noticed that like any little tiny bit of powder would just like really dry out my under eye, because I used to set it with a dry brush. And then I switched over to trying it with a damp sponge, and this really helps because I guess like the moisture from the sponge is just preventing it from drying out like too much. And for the rest of my face, I'm actually going to set it with the Sephora Microsmooth powder. This is a baked powder foundation. When I bought this, I actually thought it was a finishing powder, but it's a powder foundation. This one is in the shade Tan. So I'm going to set the rest of my face with this. Now, if I were to set the rest of my face with the Pretty Vulgar powder, I would have also set that with the damp sponge. But for this, I'm going to set it with this big brush. I keep going like this because I have a fan right in front of my face, and I just don't want it to blow the powder everywhere. And same thing with my foundation. I'm just using residual product up on my forehead because again it creases up there, and then also putting minimal products like in the areas where you tend to get the most oily. That right there will help curb the oiliness throughout the day as well. So one of the main differences that I'm going to be doing for today, because I'm doing my makeup specifically for summer weather for oily skin, I'm going to put on a good amount of setting spray now, whereas normally I would just wait until the end. So for right now, I'm going in with the Rimmel Stay Matte setting spray. This is the Fix and Go 2-in-1 primer and setting spray. I've only ever used this as a setting spray. So I'm going to put a healthy amount of this on right now. And then I'm just gonna let it sit on my face like just for a couple of seconds, just to dry down just a little bit. You guys can't see it in the camera, but I do have a fan like right in front of me, so that's helping it to dry a little bit also. And then I'm gonna take my damp sponge, and then I'm just gonna lightly press that setting spray into my skin, and this will just help it to further set it and keep it in place. Okay, so this is what we are looking like so far. I went ahead and did most of my eyes off camera since we're not really focusing on eyes today, but I'll have everything that I'm wearing in the description box. But just so that you'll know, I have the Butter London, what is this called? The Butter London, I don't know the name of this palette, but I'll have it in the description bar. But I have this shade and this shade on my eyes, this green one and this brown one. And then I also have the Emily Noel, the Emily Edit palette from Makeup Revolution. I have this green matte shade in on my eye as well, but I'll have everything that I have, you know, in the description box. So moving back to the face, everything else that I'm gonna do is pretty much the same as what I normally do, but I would just suggest, especially if you have oily skin, you're going out in like really hot summer weather, I would just suggest to use all powder products. Like, don't use like creams for, you know, bronzer, blush, all of that stuff. I know some people do like to use creams and they like to set it with a powder. My suggestion would just be to just stick with all powder products, because that will help curb the oil from coming through your skin throughout the day. So I'm going to be using like the staple products that I would normally use. I'm going in with the Charlotte Tilbury bronzer. This one is in the shade 3 medium, and I'm just going to be applying this to my cheeks, my jawline, and my forehead. And I'm just picking up some more of it on a smaller brush so that I can also bronze slash contour my nose. For blush, I'm going in with the NYX Sweet Cheeks Matte Blush. This is in the shade Summer Breeze. I'm going to go in very light with this because I like a very light, subtle bronzer on the days where I have color on my eyes. So I feel like that right there is enough blush, maybe just a little bit more, but you may not even be able to see it on camera. But I like very subtle blush when I have like a lot going on my eyes. So my highlighter is not actually one of my staple products. This is like a newfound highlighter, and it's quickly becoming one of my favorites. This is the Ciate London Confetti highlighter, and this is a BoxyCharm product. We got this a while ago. I just never tried it. I tried it maybe like a week ago just to try it, and I've been using it so much ever since. So I hope you guys can see that. It's a really, really pretty, like a bronzy type, rose gold type highlighter. It's hard for me to explain the shade of it, but I do really like it. So remember, we already went in with some setting spray after I set my face with powder, but I am going to go in with some more setting spray, and that will just further help keep the makeup in place and keep the oils curved and all of that. But now I'm going to be using the e.l.f. Stay All Night Microfine Setting Spray. I can't really compare this to any other setting sprays. I've heard that this is very similar to, I think, the Urban Decay Stay All Night setting spray. I've never tried that, but I will say that this one is a really, really good setting spray. It really does keep everything in place for a very long time. So I'm also going to go in with a healthy amount of this. And just like I did earlier, I'm going to go back with my damp sponge, and I'm going to again just lightly press this setting spray into my face. And I'm just like lightly pressing it in just to make sure it's like really in there and set. Okay, so I went ahead and finished everything off camera, but again, I'll have everything on my face listed in the description box. So this is my completed look for today. So that is how I do my makeup when I really want it to last, when I'm going out with a full face of makeup on in hot summer weather. So I really hope that y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave today. And I hope to see y'all back here for my next video. Until then, take care. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.